Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Tower Hotel in Waterford. And just can I have your attention, please, before we start, just for some general safety information and announcements. First of all, just take note of the emergency exits in the room. They're at the back and the sides, and just in the event of an emergency, please leave the building by those exits. And if you do need any help during the meeting, there's a number of members of staff of the policing authority, so just let them know. As you'll be aware, the event is streamed live, so and a video recording will also be made, so just be aware that you could be part of the record by being present, but also can everyone please, including myself, as I usually forget, please switch your mobile phones off or at least to airplane mode. Again, for those observing the meeting, please silence at all times, and if you do need to leave the room, just do it quietly without disturbing the meeting. And just as usual, today is an engagement between the authority and the Garda Commissioner, and you're present to observe. There'll be no opportunity, as usual, for anyone other than the authority and Garda representatives to participate in the meeting. Thank you very much. Bob.
Die agus fáilte roimh go dtí an cruinniú seo don údaras póilíneachta cruinniú tá de baile le chéile in snadéise Bord Láirige agus chuid den sra de crunethe tá ag gúla minic tógant fud na tíre. Seo an seachtú cruinniú poiblí na bliana seo agus in bhí deise goin castáil le agriochtaí pobl an so Bord Láirige agus leis ceannasaíocht áitiúil an háda síochána agus tuchaimid go dtí na pointí sin is cúnta é seo ina bhfuil ceantar gailteachta agus déanamid tagarta sin ag níos déanais an cruinniú. Good afternoon and welcome to this final meeting in public of the Policing Authority held today in Waterford. This is the 7th meeting in public that has taken place this year, and it's an important part of the authority's insistence on being able to engage in its meetings with community organisations and with local Garda leadership and members right across the country as an integral part of its work and its outreach and its process of engaging with the entire country. This is also a county in which there is a Gaeltacht, and we will come to that point later in the meeting. Yesterday we had the opportunity to meet with and hear the experiences of a wide range of community organisations, which was extremely valuable to us, and later in the day had the opportunity to meet with the local Garda leadership, and I want to express appreciation to Chief Superintendent Anthony Pettit for his engagement with us yesterday, and with Inspectors Siobhan Keating and Gavin Haggerty and Donald O'Donoghue. It was an open and a worthwhile meeting, and it was also attended by Assistant Commissioner Paul Cleary, who's the Regional Commissioner for the East region. We have a busy agenda, and we'll press ahead. The Commissioner will join us very shortly. He has to attend to an item of business, such as the nature of policing life, and the first issue that we are going to deal with today is properly responding to local policing challenges, and Authority Member Paul McGeehan is going to open on this one.
Thanks very much, Chair, and good afternoon, colleagues. As the Chair has said, we had an opportunity yesterday to meet both with the local Garda leadership and also with some community reps and people working in the voluntary sector. And as in many other areas that we visited throughout the country, some very positive feedback, particularly about the role of DPSUs, and some areas of concern, and I might come to that later in the session. But first of all, just to touch on one point, which was the very significant success, which I think broke in the media yesterday, in the cryptocurrency investigation, and we had a good discussion with Chief Super and his colleagues about that. I wondered though if, first of all, you might want to comment on the HEED drug prevention strategy. We did receive some positive feedback on that in relation to the local community engagement, and we did hear some of that from yourselves yesterday, but it might be useful in this public meeting to hear a little bit more about that and the impact that it has had locally.
turned it off and on, have it now? Thank you. So I suppose to begin with the cryptocurrency investigation, which you've mentioned, that has been led here in Waterford, arising out of a local investigation, which uncovered a significant criminal operation, which was intent on defrauding members of the public via a phishing, smishing text message campaign, ultimately resulting in large volume of monies being taken from victims and being transferred into cryptocurrency and indeed other property. To date, there have been a number of searches. There have been 9 arrests. The 2 leaders of what we would consider this to be an organised criminal gang have been charged and are currently before the courts with a further file with the DPP. It has resulted in the recovery of cryptocurrency in excess of 1 million, some further monetary value, and indeed property, including vehicles, and the potential to seize an actual property. Being led from Waterford, we got great assistance from our national and regional units. So our cybercrime unit, which is regionally based under our Assistant Commissioner based in Wexford, the national units involving our cybercrime unit and indeed our economic crime units, we've received great assistance. So that matter is currently before the courts. The HEED campaign, again, was something which has been derived here locally. It's devised as a prevention initiative to be rolled out in communities. We began in the GAA clubs, and the vast majority of GAA clubs across the 3 counties of Waterford, Kilkenny and Carlow have now received a presentation on the initiative. So what HEED stands for is H is for health, E is for education, the second E for enforcement, and the fourth of drug driving. But it's predominantly to inform members of the public, and particularly young people who may be involved in GAA clubs and so on, as to the dangers involved, the dangers of their health, to educate them on that. To educate them on the enforcement side, it's not particularly that we need to enforce, but we are informing people of the outcome of that enforcement, which potentially could hinder people into the future with regard to visas, education, work and so on. And finally, drug driving and the dangers of drug driving, and I suppose the influence that taking of drugs may have on you, which would be over and above maybe a 24-hour period or so on. Beginning in the GAA clubs, we've now moved on to some of the other sporting clubs, including rugby and soccer across the 3 counties, into the Scouts, which have approached us, and indeed into some of the secondary schools. Only this month we attended Waterford's GAA Health and Wellness Day in the Set2 Arena, and I think that has ignited now the thirst for more, and we'll now be rolling it out to teams of around the age 15, 16 and onwards.
Thanks very much, Chief Superintendent. I mean, leading on from that, I suppose one of the other concerns that we heard about, and again, by no means unique to this area, was the widespread and endemic presence of drugs in the community, not just here in Waterford City, but in rural areas as well. And there clearly have been a number of successes in relation to arrests and seizures. But nevertheless, there was some concern, I think, felt that that those weren't necessarily reflected, or didn't necessarily reflect a reduction in the amount of drugs that was available in the area, and also a concern that some individuals were seen to be, who are well known in the community and seen to be not being subject to any criminal action. And I'm just wondering, what can you tell us, or what can the wider leadership tell us about the strategy to identify those individuals and to take criminal action against them?
So again, here in Waterford, there is a proliferation of drugs similar to any county or urban area of its size. We are satisfied that we know the identities of the vast majority of people who are involved in drug dealing or are intent on being involved in the sale or supply of drugs. That can range to a low level, which may be visible on our streets at times, and the public will see those people being searched, being arrested, and being brought through the courts. Again, that may come up a level. Indeed, last night here in the city we had a seizure of cocaine to the value of 36,000, and an arrest made in that. And equally then we have some people who may be on a higher level again, and while tackling those, we do enlist the help of our national units. We have an operation ongoing at the moment where the Criminal Assets Bureau are involved to tackle a particular group. And while the public mightn't see as visible action on those, I can reassure the public there is action being taken on any person that we're aware of involved in sale or supply of drugs. And indeed often some of those seizures that I've mentioned may ultimately be the property of some of those people higher up the level. So where we make a seizure, while that person may not be arrested, they may be affected financially. It's disrupting the network that they have. We have a drugs unit in each of our 3 districts across Waterford County. We recently set up, as part of the rollout of OP model, our crime hub. So we've appointed a detective superintendent for the first time across Waterford. I think that coordinates our activity on a better scale, coordinates our use of intelligence and how we lead out on intelligence-led operations, and also the governance around how we conduct ourselves. So while it's an ongoing battle, I'm satisfied we are making inroads here in Waterford.
Okay, thank you. Linked to that again is and what we heard yesterday were some concerning and widespread reports about drug intimidation, and I know again that's a phenomenon that the Guards are dealing with in communities across the country. And I know about the Drive initiative and the fact that it's been put in place to try to help people who are the subject of intimidation by drugs gangs. When we raised that with some of the individuals and groups that we met yesterday, while some people did know about it, was a little bit concerning that quite a number didn't. And I'm just wondering, how do you address that absence of knowledge locally here in Waterford, but also nationally? The first part might be a question for you, but maybe a question for others.
Well, we have some incidents of drug-related intimidation in Waterford. Firstly, they usually involve a crime where there's either an assault, perhaps some damage, or the threat of an assault or some damage. So first and foremost, obviously, we will investigate that as a crime. We do appreciate that some families may not be in a position to come through the criminal justice system out of fear of intimidation and so on. So on occasion where we can progress it through the criminal justice system, we do engage to provide supports, including crime prevention advice. If there's a family member who is in need of some drug intervention services, obviously we'll put them in touch there. What I would say is, even if the family are unaware of the drug-related intimidation initiative, once we become involved, we will put that process into place. So there is no obligation on the family member to know that our dedicated inspector, who you met yesterday, Detective Inspector Don, who covers that area. Once that person makes a contact with a local Garda or any member of the force, we will put that into place. Equally, a lot of our community and voluntary agencies are aware. The Family Support Network, for example, a lot of community groups. So we would encourage families to come forward through whatever means, and whatever means they come forward, however they make contact with ourselves, we will get that dedicated inspector to meet them, to discuss how they would like to proceed and to provide whatever supports we can.
Okay, I'm just wondering, I'm not sure whose area this falls under, but nationally this initiative, which has clearly got very good potential, but are you satisfied that people who are in the situation where they're at the receiving end of some of this intimidation will know about this initiative or will be directed to it?
At national level, it's the Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau, that's the bureau that oversees this. And so the policy emanates from there, but as you'll be aware from previous conversations, there is an inspector in every division with specific responsibility in terms of drugs-related intimidation. I suppose the answer to your question is we could always do more, but we are doing a lot. And as the Chief has said, you know, we do rely on engagement as well, and some people are willing to engage, others might be afraid for, you know, any number of reasons. But I suppose the important thing is that in the first instance we investigate the crime, whether that is a burglary or an assault or whatever else, and probably in more recent times we're seeing incidents of aggravated burglary, you know, being as such drugs-related intimidation, really. So, and that's very traumatic for families and indeed everybody who's living in the household. So the drugs-related intimidation coordination inspector then reaches out to the family and tries to help in whatever way they can in the context of supports if there's a dependency, or perhaps other help, you know, that may not be known until you actually engage with the individual. So a lot of work is done. It's an area of significant focus for the organisation, and we obviously continue to review and monitor that in terms of new and emerging trends in that regard.
Okay, thank you. I mentioned earlier that one of the very positive aspects of the feedback that we got locally, and again this is replicated in other places, is the impact, is in relation to the impact of the DPSUs. When we spoke yesterday to the Chief Super and his colleagues, it was clear that that work is ongoing and is well regarded within Garda Síochána and in the local community. But one of the issues that was raised with us, and again, it's not something that we haven't heard before, is in relation to the first point of contact that a victim may have. And so when they get to the DPSU, there are staff there who are very well trained in relation to the victims that are coming forward, but that sometimes the first point of contact isn't quite as empathetic. And obviously that's a difficult challenge, because the first point of contact could be any member of the service who is called to an incident or picks up the phone. But I'm just wondering to what extent you recognise that as a potential problem, and what if anything can be done about that?
So in terms of the training that all Gardaí get, so there's a quite significant focus, particularly in relation to the type of work that the DPSUs encounter. There's a specific programme.
I think that mic isn't working properly. I wonder, might you?
No, I think this is working. That's it.
Oh.
It's working now. Deputy First.
So the all trainees undergo quite a significant programme of education in the context of domestic and sexual offences. Side by side with that, they also undergo assist training and safe talk training, which is really all about vulnerability, and it is an education to them, I suppose, in their own personal lives, but also in the context of their interactions with victims and potential victims. In addition to that, then there's a communications module on the trainee programme, which, you know, speaks to empathy, understanding, good communication, how you turn up, I suppose, really, and then the informal communication and how you might be perceived when you do engage with victims. In addition to that, then I'm aware that there's several other.
Are we ready to proceed?
Check 1 2 1 2.
Well, I think we should just
hear me. So as part of their training, all Gardaí, as they go through Templemore, receive quite extensive training from different perspectives, it has to be said. First, in the first instance, there's a specific module on domestic and sexual crime, which they all undergo. In addition to that, then they undergo assist and safe talk training, which really, I suppose, engages them in the context of, vulnerabilities, dealing with vulnerable people, and being aware and being able to see the signs and spot the signs of where that vulnerability exists. In addition to that, then there's a specific communications module, which again speaks and deals with empathy, good communication, non-verbal communication, and then the whole importance of how you show up in the context of victimology. Separately then, there are a number of inputs from specialists in the field of psychological behaviour, and this is all as part of a suite of measures and as part of a suite of inputs that the trainees get as they go through their training in Templemore. So your question was, are we doing enough in the general sense vis-a-vis the DPSUs and the experience of the public when I suppose our regular guards go to attend calls. So what I would say to you is we're doing a lot, and there are always opportunities for further training, and maybe indeed a need for further training, and that's something that we're always mindful of. But the DPSUs are specialists in their field. They are very skilled in terms of the work they do, and so I suppose they are the experts in this area.
Okay, thank you. My final question might be more directed to you, Commissioner. In the public meeting that we had earlier this year in the northeast inner city in Dublin, we raised concerns with yourself about accounts that we had heard there of maybe overzealous policing, disrespectful attitudes to young people in particular, maybe difficult relationships with young people in that community. And I think at that stage you acknowledged that wasn't the first time that you had heard that, and that perhaps you and your colleagues needed to reflect on that. We didn't hear reports to the same degree of that in this area, but we did hear some reports about similar difficult relationships with some local communities, and in particular the traveller community. I wonder, can you tell us, have you had an opportunity to reflect on that issue, and what can you say to communities about how seriously that matter is taken, and what steps you might take to address it?
Thank you very much. Well, if we go back to your own report, what we heard, and in effect, the feedback that provided to us in terms of just communities, when all of that was aggregated up, the sense of feedback. So, as a result of that, then we have looked at the various issues that arose in that report, and then seen what else we might do in terms of our training, particularly for the students in the college around their awareness, but also then in respect of our community policing programme and the training programme that's put in place of that around the connection both to young people, but also then underrepresented communities, certainly underrepresented within Garda Síochána and the policing service then that we provide. So we've probably not had the opportunity yet in this meeting to look to our own diversity strategy, but one of the central tenets of that is around actually how we provide a policing service to the public, and obviously these are areas then that we're very anxious to address in terms of just training based on the feedback. I myself then have met with various groups this September and October in the light of recent protest activity where they felt that Garda Commissioner's response, for instance, was not what they might have expected, and they had issues to raise with me in terms of the performance that they reported on the ground. So, and that's good to have those conversations, because as a result of that, we instigated a review of our overall strategy around the policing of assembly, where protests then might be engaged. And then secondly, I've also engaged again with the traveller community and sought their direct feedback in terms of policing services provide, and that's an ongoing engagement about what else we might do, particularly to outreach to the traveller community around the policing service that we provide to them as well as to others. And all of us are very conscious that we provide a service to everyone in this society, and want to make sure that everyone within this society feel they can come to Garda Síochána and that they will be dealt with, properly as a citizen, and we'll be doing all that we can to make sure that they're safe and we respond to their needs appropriately as they report matters or as victims, or indeed as suspects, that all are dealt with properly within human rights 10 basis.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner and Chief Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to follow up on a few matters that Paul just raised there. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to Chief Superintendent Anthony Pettit and Assistant Commissioner Cleary and colleagues for a wonderfully interesting engagement and frank and open engagement yesterday. The Deputy Commissioner used the phrase there in respect of the training about how Garda recruits learn to spot the signs of vulnerability. Just in the context of engaging with young people, all young people are vulnerable just by nature of their age and stage and neurodevelopment, but some are more vulnerable than others. We don't all come into this world with equal opportunities in life or equal experiences of safety in our family homes or communities. Can you tell me a little bit about your approach to engaging with young people in general, and then with minority groups in particular, please? Maybe Chief Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I suppose our community engagement here in Waterford is predominantly led out by our community engagement teams and our community policing teams. We have a dedicated community policing unit here in the city, and then we have our community guards out in the county. They engage in a number of initiatives. You specifically mentioned young people. Our juvenile liaison officers are obviously involved with some of those young people at a very early stage, predominantly to divert them away from involvement in crime or antisocial behaviour, whatever that may be. Equally, we have a strong presence in the youth diversion schemes, and we had a good conversation around that yesterday, and indeed how that works. Equally, we have a good input within the schools. We do our schools programme, which is on a number of areas, and it is to divert young people who, as you say, are vulnerable by their age alone, away from harms around online, drugs, road safety, and so on. In addition, then, we have our own strategies and our own local initiatives with regards to diverse communities. We have, I would say, a good interaction with the traveller agencies here in Waterford. Equally, some of the other ethnic groups that we have here, we have about 10% of Waterford city and county would identify as a nationality other than Irish, and about 13% would say they're of some ethnicity other than Irish. Particularly here in Waterford, we have a number of direct provision centres, and again we have good interaction there. Also with the Islamic community, we have a number of prayer houses and mosques. We had an investigation actually going back a number of years, 6 or 7 years, which involved the arrest and prosecution of a member of that community in relation to terrorist financing. And we did some training in the lead up to making arrests and searches to educate our people around the ethnicity involved with some of these people, and the feedback from the community was very positive. Not only did they appreciate that we had identified someone within the community who had done wrong and we had taken steps, but the feedback was also positive in relation to the respect we showed for the traditions and ethnicity that was unique to that particular community. A number of other examples we can give. We had Pride Week here in Waterford with the local LGBTQ community. So I'm satisfied we reach out into a lot of the communities which are diverse for their own reasons. And I'd like to think Waterford are to the forefront of a lot of initiatives that we have going nationwide.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to follow up a little bit on engaging with the traveller community, while I accept that there are no doubt examples of very good practice, we did hear some quite harrowing stories. And as a mother myself, particularly the impact on young children and inappropriate language, sometimes abusive language being used, and also the regular use of armed support units, including when responding to issues that don't involve violence. Can you tell us a little bit about how you risk assess situations and how you track the proportionality of the actions taken in order to, I suppose, learn, was it really necessary in the circumstances?
So our risk assessment predominantly would revolve around planned arrests or planned searches. And that risk assessment will involve our knowledge of the person or place that we intend to search, whether there had been violence in the past, whether there had been use of weapons and so on. That may be tempered by the presence of children, and we would do everything we can to shield the children from witnessing anything that at that tender age they shouldn't. There may well be occasions where the ASU is used on a search. There may well be a case that it's perceived that the numbers used may exceed what they may feel would be used. But I'm satisfied that we don't go over and beyond the numbers that we need. It's risk assessed, and both the numbers of members or the capability of members, including ASU, I believe would be matched to the situation that we believe we will face. And that's to keep our own members safe, and also to make sure that the people that we're searching are safe, and we have the capability to carry out a search or arrest, which is the objective.
Okay, thank you. I had one for the Commissioner, but he had to stand out. I don't know if anyone else might like to respond to this. Some of the issues that we heard in this regard are consistent with the Traveller Access to Justice report published by UL in June of this year, or last year rather. What has been done organisationally to respond to that report?
Can we come back to you on that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And the next item on the agenda is policing performance, and Moling is going to lead on this topic.
Thank you, Chair. The area, just a few questions, is on the issue of the investigation management system, and I'm conscious that this has been an issue that's in place for a number of years, but not fully deployed nationally at this stage. But I'm conscious of the fact too that Waterford have had it in place for a number of years. So I'm very interested in hearing what your experience of the IMS has been. And maybe as an introduction to that, if you might be good enough to share with us what is different, or what's the usage, how different is it in terms of what you're now doing with the IMS and what you had been doing pre-IMS?
Okay, so pre-IMS, our IT system was predominantly Pulse, which I suppose started out as really an IT system to record data. but more and more it became an IT system to track our investigations and the progress in those investigations. But it never went as far as IMS did, and it was never designed to go as far as IMS did. So the changes that IMS brought were, first of all, in relation to tasking. So supervisors were able to create what we call a job. So an online job was created for the investigators. The supervisor could review the investigation and look for the following jobs to be done. And then the investigators go in, complete the jobs, and report back to the supervisor. So that, I suppose that was the first advantage, that the online jobs. The second was the online supervision and accountability. So heretofore, traditionally, the supervisors would sit down with the investigating member and go through an investigation file. Now, you don't necessarily need to have that investigator sitting on your side. The statements are available to you electronically, reports are available to you, and all the evidence is there. So it's now possible for the supervisor to review an incident, review an investigation, and make recommendations for prosecution or recommend further action. The other advantages I think it brings is, as we look back along investigations, perhaps that were a number of years old, there's that one repository of investigation where you have multiple members investigating multiple incidents. That's all available at the fingertips to perhaps someone who makes an arrest today and can deal with a number of incidents. So I would say they were the huge advantages that came our way. It brings advantages to the organisation in terms of consistency. It brings advantages in terms of accountability and in how we manage our data and our investigations. So I suppose they were the huge changes that came our way. It was introduced initially in Waterford. Perhaps some of the feedback you've been hearing up until now is about the time it takes to perhaps process some of the data, perhaps how cumbersome the system has been at times. Perhaps we may have had that view in the early days. What I would say about IMS is that we have now had it in excess of 4 years. That whole usability has now come our way. We no longer view the system as being cumbersome. We no longer need to take the amount of time that we would have had at the start to review investigations. Equally, some suggestions that Waterford and other divisions that they've taken on have suggested to improve IMS has been taken on board by the organisation, and some IT fixes and some improvements have been made. So I think now, 4 years on, we have a sleeker IMS, we have a more usable, user-friendly IMS, and I think it is to be embraced for the organisation. I think we had a discussion in some of the meetings around perhaps having some additional clerical support who could do some of the typing, scanning, uploading and so on. Obviously our idea is that our frontline people and our investigators spend the majority of their time out on the street. So anything that can speed up the process and ensure that our people are where the public would like them to be, we would welcome. So I think Waterford's view is certainly that IMS is a huge positive for the organisation. Some of the improvements we have sought are already in place, and perhaps there's another number of small improvements that we can make, and they're being examined as we speak.
Maybe one of the criticisms that has been levelled in relation to investigations is where you've got a Garda who has been given responsibility for an investigation, and may have seen the victim in the particular instance, but the Garda may then be off for a significant period of time, maybe off in the normal course of events, or maybe on leave, or maybe sick or whatever. Does the IMS system now give an opportunity for the supervisor in that situation to allocate the case to another Garda for continuation of the investigation, and that a person isn't a victim or some other significant person isn't left without contact or without an update in relation to what's happening for a period of time which you might deem unacceptable?
Yes, that is the case, and that was my earlier point around you don't necessarily need that original investigating guard to be sitting beside you to review the case as a supervisor. You can review the case. If there is some priority or urgency on jobs, they can be allocated to any member, not just the investigating member. That regularly happens in relation to domestic violence, for example. So cases which may occur at night, and perhaps our members are going to a number of rest days. That following morning, we're already detailing people to do callbacks, to provide further insurance or take further investigative steps that we need. In addition, we can also task members with jobs which would be outside our division. So we may be investigating something, but we require a statement to be taken from Wexford. Equally, we can task a member there. And I suppose while all these jobs are going on, the advantage of IMS is capturing all this activity. It's capturing any statement you take, any reports you make, any actions you take, and that's all available then for supervisors to review.
There's a further point, if I might raise with you. One of the things that you would have seen in media reports, and indeed that we would have gotten feedback from Garda around the country in various instances, the extent of paperwork that's involved, and maybe even a concern or a fear for members in those particular areas. Yet got IMS, a fear that it's even going to create more paperwork or excessive paperwork, or there's an excessive amount of their time allocated to paperwork to the detriment of the actual investigation itself. Have you seen the IMS? Have you seen an improvement in that situation from the time it was introduced in the first instance? How do you see that element of what they might deem as extra work, as extra paperwork particularly?
Okay, so there is an onus on us to investigate matters that are reported to as crimes. We're gathering evidence. Inevitably, some of that evidence is paper-based, it's statements and so on. So whether we have IMS or not, there is an obligation on us to gather that. I don't think that IMS is more burdensome than the process we had previously. In fact, IMS is designed to streamline it. IMS does allow to take out some of the burdensome processes. Our mobility devices now are being linked into IMS so that online, as you work, you could be out and about on the beat or in the car. If you take a statement or take some notes, they can be automatically uploaded. So it does actually take away some of the paperwork. We're moving from a fully paper-based system into an IT system. And yes, that has taken some time. It has taken a period where we've had to move from one to the other. But I'm satisfied after a number of years in Waterford that certainly this is the system we need to proceed with.
Yeah, I was taken by your observation that Garda IT are taking into consideration the observations of those using it and adjusting this and have made a number of adjustments to the system to make it more user-friendly and more effective. What type of feedback are you getting from your members, the investigating officers?
Yeah, so usually the suggestions actually come from our investigating officers. So they will suggest these are the frustrations we're finding and look for the fix on that. Some of them are around where you're going to close an investigation. The obvious one is a missing person. So a missing person creates a number of tasks or a number of jobs. But if that missing person, and invariably a lot of missing persons are found within a relatively short period of time, rather than have to close each individual job, you can close the jobs because the person has been found. So that was a fix which came from the ground up, that this was a frustration that we're having to go through this cumbersome system. Equally, our supervisors would have a number of investigations which are before the courts. So we're awaiting a court outcome. The investigation has been done, but the incident can't fully be closed until the court outcome is done. But maybe every month or every couple of months, we're seeing this constantly come back. Again, a fix has come in recently that this investigation won't populate for a further action to be taken until that court has determined the outcome. So I'm satisfied that actually most of the fixes come from the ground up, and we do rely on our people who are using IMS on a daily basis to tell us both the advantages and the disadvantages, and that's how we'll improve.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I note from the Assistant Commissioner might want to respond to this. I note from the report from the Commissioner, it says he speaks about a recent major review of IMS and feedback from user group workshops. What can you tell us about the review? What can you tell us about the workshops? What does it mean in terms of fixes? Is that consistent with what the Chief Superintendent has been saying about what's been happening at a local level in Waterford?
Yes, so very much so. The review and the workshop, actually, a lot of it was carried out down in Wexford and Waterford, and in the southern and eastern region where IMS was the first to be piloted and has been piloted for a number of years. The change requests that went in came from the ground right up through into ICT, and whilst they have had to wait their turn along with a number of other change requests, we have seen, particularly in the last, I would say, 6 to 12 months, a number of changes to IMS that have streamlined and made it a lot more user-friendly. The interface is very user-friendly. And just to go back on what Chief Pett had said there, it was always the case that we would have had paperwork. There was always. And, we're really trying to digitise and automate as much as we can without using that accuracy. I recall in the past 20, 30 years ago, you would be handwriting statements, handwriting reports, there would be carbon paper, big forms to fill. So we always had that element of how we do our business. But having seen how IMS works and can work, it's a huge leap forward. And it really does streamline, and it gives us access to that data from an accountability point of view, that anyone can come in at any time and see exactly, get a snapshot of where we are with any investigation. Anthony has also mentioned that he conducts his interviews with his probation or Gardaí, and they will be the ones that are advocates for this IMS. They don't know anything else other than this, so they find this very beneficial. The boxes that they will have to go through to tick, not just tick box, but there are all these tasks that are outlined, really help them with formulating the structure of their investigation. So as regards to review and the workshop, that's a very real positive, and we are learning from it.
Great, thank you very much. And a final question, and I know the chair will want to come in with a request in just a moment. But our final question is on this particular area is, and I mentioned at the outset that the IMS hasn't yet been circulated or hasn't yet been extended right around the country. What is your sense in terms of when we might expect that it will be in operation on a national level?
So it's been rolled out in the national units and in some divisions around the country. My colleague AC Justin Kelly is the owner of this particular project, so I can't give a definitive date as to when the whole country will be IMS rollout.
So we have a plan. We have a rollout plan for 2024. There are 8 divisions currently done and 1 national unit, and then there's a full rollout schedule then for 2024.
Great, thank you very much indeed.
At this stage, for operational reasons, in the light of an incident that has taken place in Dublin, the Commissioner has to leave us and return to Dublin. So we're going to pause the meeting for 10 minutes and resume at that stage. Thank you for your patience, those of you who are here in the hall, and for your understanding, and equally to those who are watching the live relay of this meeting. It's a reflection of the reality that confronts policing on an all too frequent basis. So we'll pause for some minutes and return. Thank you. December meeting and at other engagements in the meantime. But I'm acutely conscious of the fact that we are having this meeting in circumstances where the lives and realities of a number of families have been very severely upturned and profoundly affected by the events that have taken place in Dublin. And I would not want there for a moment to be any sense that there is a lack of sensitivity to those circumstances. we recognise that operational policing always continues in the face of awful circumstances, and the events that have taken place in Dublin reveal to us the fact that danger can lurk even in the most innocent of circumstances, and it is in those moments that members of the Garda Síochána and other responders are called upon to act professionally and to respond in the way that they always do. And being sensitive to that and to the fact that a number of families have been plunged into a very difficult set of circumstances, I think we will deal with a number of the items that are remaining on the agenda, and some of the other items we will pick up with later. And I've identified custody because of its significance in policing, roads policing because of the crucial interest that there is on the part of the community in relation to it. And then I think we will conclude the meeting at that stage, and at any other issues we will resume. And so in that context, I will ask Anthony Harbinson if he would begin on the custody.
Thank you, Chair. Assistant Commissioners, probably more for yourself, because I think you've been leading in this particular area. But can you provide us with an update on the implementation plan for custody recommendations, please?
Yes, so the Garda Inspector report on delivering custody services contained 41 recommendations, 27 of which were for Garda Síochána and another 14 for the Department of Justice. So consequently then we have engaged extensively with the department and agreed on a joint implementation plan, which is currently with the department for sign-off, and which we have shared earlier today with the policing authority. And I'm conscious that you've only just received it today, so you will need that time to go through it. But it basically sets out a roadmap of our response to the recommendations made by the Garda Inspectorate, and covers the area of that governance and oversight, that performance assurance. We are a very long way along the road with our existing policies and procedure consolidation. So one of the recommendations is that the vast number of policy and procedures in this area going back a number of years be consolidated into one document. Now that's a large body of work that has been undertaken, and we're nearly there with that, and I would hope that by Q1 that new policy and procedure document will be out with accompanying governance framework. The other areas where we've made some significant progress is around the letter of rights, which has already gone out, the custody estate, the custody management implementation group, the procurement. I've only recently submitted a business case to the Executive Director of Procurement around the following items: clothing, washing kits, towels, toothpaste, toothbrushes, female sanitary products and reading materials. A review of property lockers was also carried out, and those that didn't have lockers that were up to standard or could be locked have applied for new ones, and they've been replaced. We've also looked for a specific drop-down category on Pulse that will be able to record any use of force incidents that specifically occur within custody areas. In relation to the digital custody management system, that's not something that we have accepted in full at this time because of the significant capital expenditure that would be required, not only in that area but across the whole organisation and our ICT networks. However, we are going to engage a business analyst to at least look at this to see exactly what's involved and what the cost implications are, and then we'll take that back then when we look at that. I think overall the implementation plan is fairly comprehensive. Each one of the 41 recommendations is broken down in turn into a number of parts, and you will see from the draft copy we've given to you this morning that we have made a lot of tangible progress, but also there's still some way to go, as do the department.
Thank you. Obviously, I haven't seen the document, so
Yeah, sure.
I look forward to reading it. Just touching on a few points. Maybe the online digital custody management system, first of all, because it is actually one of the things that we were hearing quite strongly in terms of feedback from members, that they wanted to see. So, I mean, this is your own staff asking for this. So what is the process to actually, you outlined you're going to get some consultants in to have a look at it. Is there a time frame?
No, and it will be at least medium term because of what's involved. The actual machines in custody areas are one thing, but it's the networking to those custody areas in 100, 200-year-old stations in some areas, and that would be a significant undertaking and require a significant capital budget that will have to be approved. We'll have to get that from somewhere. So I think we'll have to have a look at what's involved first and budget, cost it, and then we should have more. Once we get this analyst in the next couple of months, I don't know how long the review is going to take, but as soon as we get that back, then we should have more information as to a timeline.
Okay. In terms of the current custody estate that you have, you quite kindly sent us some documents during the week that I've had a chance to look at in terms of checklist and appropriate approaches to both cleaning and maintenance and checking of those on a daily basis, which I've read not just as a checklist but as a procedure and a routine that on a daily basis, monthly, weekly, to check that all of the cells are appropriate for people to go into.
Yeah, so it's a HQ directive, so it is our policy, and it's HQ 102 of 2013 that you would have been provided with, and it provides for the supervision, inspection and maintenance of all operational cells, and a cell inspection checklist is utilised daily. Any defects are reported to the district officer for immediate attention. Any defects, deficiencies are discussed daily at the PAF performance meetings. Local management and supervisors are required to manage the risks associated with any defective cell, and that can include closing a cell, depending on what the situation might be.
And I appreciate that any cell can be vandalised, for the want of a better description. Overnight, when someone is in it, they can react in different ways, but I'm assuming that you've done the anti-ligature checks, and any cell that doesn't meet that has been closed down.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could perhaps give me just some indication of the number of custody cells that are in the estate at the moment and how many have been closed down.
So since 2012, we've undertaken a significant cell refurbishment programme with the OPW, and we did at that time have 167 custody locations, and that's now reduced to 119. Of those 119, we have 98 have been fully refurbished in accordance with the Home Office standards that we adopted back at that time, which addresses anti-ligature capabilities there. And the other 20 are prioritised for refurbishment over the next few years. They're prioritised in accordance of their level of demand. In other words, the number of persons that are detained there per year at that Garda station, the distance to the nearest Garda station with refurbished cells, the time to travel to the nearest Garda station with refurbished cells, and any identified cluster of Garda stations requiring refurbishment. And that's because we're bound by the legal framework around our detentions, which start at the time of arrest. So we can't have too much of a distance to travel to that custody area, because it would eat into that, say for example, 6-hour detention. But we have made recommendations for further improvements. I've done a body of work around ensuring that we respect the dignity of persons in custody, and where any cells that are being refurbished going forward, we've made some changes around washing and toilet facilities and access to cleaning materials and toothpaste and that type of stuff. So that all forms part of this new consolidated policy and procedures document that will be ready for Q1.
And can I just check the cells that haven't been refurbished? I mean, obviously toothpaste and stuff like that, toileting is an issue, but I'm more concerned with the anti-ligature and the safety side of it. Is there greater supervision within those units?
No, all of the cells we have meet the standard for anti-ligature.
They do, right.
The refurbishment programme goes the extra mile, and you could have panic strips or whatever else you might have there, but all of the cells currently in use meet health and safety requirements.
That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. If I can move now then on to roads policing, and I touched on this at the last meeting in Ballynall, and I just wanted to check again that you're content that you have the right resources going forward, whether that be people, whether that be technology, cars, whatever it happens to be, or even indeed legislative remit. And so again, I'm just asking, are you content that you have the appropriate resources?
So in terms of resources, so we have our own internal resources, our human resources, I suppose, in the form of our traffic corps. Numbers in that regard have slipped marginally over the last couple of years, but it's important to note that the Gardaí on the regular units contribute significantly to the road traffic safety enforcement and all that goes with that. In fact, 25% of the offences detected of that total figure is done by the regular units. And indeed, when it comes to drink and drug driving, that figure moves up to 75% is completed by the regular units. So I'm satisfied that there is considerable activity, both preventative and detection work done day in, day out by our roads policing and regular units right around the country. In the context of the run-up to the Christmas, we always have a Christmas road safety campaign. It will be starting on the 1st of December and it will run through to the 4th of January. We're going to be targeting drink and drug driving, speeding, safety belt and mobile phone usage. And, you know, I suppose each and every division in the country will have a proactive operational plan targeting those particular areas. Our analyst service have done significant work over the past, analysing trends over the past 12 years. And it's so the locations where we conduct our enforcement and prevention work is very much evidence-based, based on the feedback from the analysts. So in terms of technology, we have our Go Safe vans, and there's additional hours provided for between now and the end of the year, and they'll be maximised in terms of key locations, etc. But I suppose looking internationally, there is more we can do, or that we, Ireland Inc., can do to leverage technology to a greater extent. And I think there is support for that, you know, at national level. In terms of transport, our fleet is in good state, and the other thing you asked me about was legislation. So the legislation is there. You know, I mean, there are often discussions about the, you know, the levels of penalty, whether it's penalty points or monetary, but that's for the legislator to you know, to determine. But our job is to enforce what's there. So and that's what we do.
Of course. Can I ask what impact you think the new insurance data sharing process will have for yourselves, and when will frontline members be able to access it through their mobile devices?
So it's going to be a significant enhancement, I suppose, to our toolbox, so to speak. But there may still be a time lag. You know, if there's a broker involved in the process, there may still be a time lag, but I'm sure over time that will be ironed out. But in general, this is very welcome, and it's a step in the right direction. And I'm just not in a position to tell you whether or not that database is available currently in the app, in the mobility device.
Shortly, very shortly, definitely that'll be in. We've also made great strides from a technology point of view. We've rolled out a number of new Skoda SUV cars that are fully equipped technology with ANPR, which will pick up that new database information on insurance, and that in addition to what was already there for tax and any orders on the car. So those vehicles have been rolled out to some roads policing units in the 4 regions around the country, and we've got very positive feedback from them. In relation to roads policing in the eastern region, I think that, you know, there's no doubt that we have had our share of tragedy on the roads, but we have really pushed our enforcement towards the second half of this year. But we're also relying on the education and awareness piece. We work closely with the RSA and we go out publicly, and we really will look for members of the public to take personal responsibility for their driving habits, especially when it comes to drink driving and drug driving, where we're seeing a significant increase from where it was in 2019.
Just maybe touching on that and expanding a little bit, social media can be blamed for many things, but one of the things that has been coming through on roads, and it's not just in Ireland, it's across the world, is people joyriding, videoing, driving at excessive speed, having children sitting, driving vehicles, all sorts of things, and putting it on. And in Ireland specifically, things like sulky racing up and down roads and motorways. Obviously, you can't be everywhere all the time, but a lot of this stuff is being posted and shared across social media, and I'm just wondering, what is your approach to that in terms of either investigation or enforcement after the event, obviously, but with the evidence of YouTube and all the rest of it?
So what we've seen in relation to the type of incidents that you refer to on social media, we have seen good use of our traffic watch scheme, where members of the public can ring in, and they don't have to be ringing in from the side of the road. If they see something that's traffic related on social media or YouTube, wherever, they can utilise that method of reporting, or they can ring their local station. Any of those incidents that are brought to our attention will be fully investigated, and they will be assigned locally. If we can identify the area, if not, it'll go to where it was reported, and they'll start their investigation there. In relation to the sulky racing, what I can say in the eastern region is that we've been very proactive in this regard, because we did and we do have an issue with that. So we have an inter-regional operation with the Dublin region, and it's focused a lot around Meath and Kildare and West and South West Dublin. So, for example, that incident that was reported last Sunday morning, that was as a result of proactive patrolling for this particular operation, which takes place in the very early hours of Saturday and Sunday morning in those areas that we're aware of, or that we might have intelligence on, or where we have seen these activities before. In Waterford, for example, this year to date, we have 12 incidents in relation to sulky racing or sulky driving, and they're all being investigated, and it is anticipated that there will be a number of prosecutions there. I think, you know, we have some legislation in this area. We utilise Section 43 of the Roads Act 1993 for persons bringing animals onto the road. We also use the Control of Horses Act. So there is some legislation there that we can stretch to. You know, more specific legislation would be welcome at some point in the future, and I know our AC in charge of roads policing will be engaging with the department and the Road Safety Authority in relation to that. So yeah.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, colleagues. One of the items that we have on the agenda for this afternoon is the CAD 99 call quality review. It will be remembered that a great deal of time and attention has been paid to the issue of the unwarranted cancellation of a range of 999 call incidents a number of years ago. And a great deal of work has been done in relation to that in the intervening period within the Garda Síochána and as between the authority and the Garda Síochána. Our intention is to submit a report to the Minister before Christmas, which we hope will be a conclusive one. Further work needs to be undertaken, and we will be looking to and working with the Garda Síochána to try to ensure that can be completed as quickly as possible, so that that comprehensive report can be made available to the Minister in accordance with our commitment. So to do, I think we will discuss that separately with Deputy Commissioner and other colleagues in the coming days, with a view to bringing that to the conclusion that we all wish to see. Other issues which relate to human resource management and discipline and conduct issues within the organisation will be engaged with at a committee level meeting on Friday, and other items that we had intended to have on the agenda we will deal with at a later date, and therefore I think it right, having dealt with those last two issues which are of significant of moment, and also of particularly in the area of roads policing of particular interest to so very many people, we should now bring this meeting to a conclusion. I know that those who are with us in this hall in Waterford and those who have been following the meeting in the live streaming of it will understand the reasons why we've attenuated the agenda. I want to express appreciation again to the community associations, organisations, and to the local Garda management and their colleagues for the engagements we had yesterday, and to those of you who are here from Garda Síochána, to my colleagues on the authority, and particularly to the Commissioner for the engagement in today's meeting. And Deputy McMahon would like to make an observation.
Thank you, Chair. Just before we conclude, this is our last public meeting in 2023. I'm also aware that it's your last public meeting, and indeed Moling and Valerie as well. So on behalf of Garda Síochána, I just want to acknowledge the contribution that you've made to the public and that sense of public service over the last number of years. And I can't say it was always easy, but it was always fruitful. And I just want to wish you well, all three of you, as you complete your term with the policing authority. And I know there'll be another occasion when we'll have more celebratory tones that we can allude to. So, but for today, I just want to acknowledge and wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Commissioner. Humidity prevents me from saying any more, but as they say in Waterford, Beglaw Elige Boirach. Thank you for those kind remarks, and it is important to honour the contribution that Moling and Valerie have made over the 8 years, and indeed all of those who serve now and who have served in the authority since its inception. Thank you very much for that. This meeting is now concluded.
Thank you.